and produce. So these three books will walk you through the history and tell you, the reader, how these religions came about.
Okay, then let's move on to history. And try to get you are saying now that the Europeans wrote history, and they wrote it according to the Bible. Explain that all of this historical places, Mesopotamia and all that, comes out of the Bible. Kind of give how that is connected, where we get history that parallels that. Do that one more time. I know you said that. Just touch on it so we can move on.
Okay, well, see, you have to understand that the subject called history was created by the Europeans.
Right.
And what they used as their base foundation was the Bible. You see? The Old Testament and the New Testament. And the New Testament was written by a homosexual by the name of Desiderius Erasmus. Okay? He was commissioned by Pope Alexander VI in 1500 to write something on the object of Christianity. The object of Christianity is Jesus the Christ. So what he did, after 16 years of formulating his writings, he came out with what is known as the Synoptic Gospels, or the three Gospels, or the three manuscripts, which is consisting of Mark, Matthew, and Luke. They always tell you that John came later. That's true. So he came out with the Synoptic Gospel, or the the New Testament, but it was called in 1516 the Novum Instrumentum. 1519 they changed it to the Novum Testamentum. 1535 they changed it to the New Testament. Now Erasmus, Desiderius Erasmus, was a European playwright who was an ex-Roman Catholic priest. Okay? And he came out for the very first time with the creation of what we know today as a New Testament. And then he went on and added 6 more other books to the New Testament, or the Novum Instrumentum, which is 1 and 2 Peter, 1 and 2 Corinthians, Galatians, and Epistles to the Romans. Those are his 6 manuscripts. So he had 9 manuscripts that made up the New Testament. This is history. Okay? So once you understand that the Old Testament and was written and came out of the religion called Judaism, and the New Testament was created separately, independent of the Old Testament, by one Desiderius Erasmus for the Roman Catholic Church. And it was put under one cover for the very first time by a man by the name of Jacob van Liesvelt in 1527. See, I'm giving you a lot of history that no one else is giving you. 1527 is when they put the Old and the New Testament under one book. Okay, under one cover. That was done by Jacob van Liesvelt, a Swedish theologian. And then in 1535, Martin Luther put the Old and the New Testament under one cover also. You see? So you have to understand how these things come about. They just don't pop up. Correct. They are done by a progression of time, people, places, and events that makes up the ingredients for history. Okay? And so once you understand that, then you can put all these things together, and these things will fall in place for your complete understanding. Now, the question that you asked me was what now?
Christianity. I wanted to know how far Christianity goes back and how it kind of evolved, and its connection with Hebrew or the Jews, because there was a Christian, there was the Crusades and etc. And so there had to be a form of a religion, but it didn't have to be, as you say. connected to Judaism.
See, Christianity is not connected to Judaism.
That's what I want.
Okay, Christianity is not connected to Judaism. Only at a time in history that the Jews connected Christianity to, a time in history when the Jews connected Judaism to Christianity.
Okay.
Okay? Let's go back during the creation of the King James Version that came out in 1611. A group of theologians led by Lancelot Andrewes created what is known as the King James Version. All this was financed by Jews, Jewish money. Okay? And in the King James Version, something happened. You know what happened? The fourth gospel came out. This is something else no one is telling you. The fourth gospel of John came out. And if you get a Bible concordance and you look up Jew in there, they will refer you to Jesus being a Jew in John. That's where Jesus first became a Jew, in the writings of the literature of John that came out in the King James Version. So what happened, the Jews got a jump on the Christians, took them by surprise when they came out with the King James Version with the John in there as the fourth gospel, with Jesus being a Jew in there. So that's how they connect Christianity with Judaism. You see, it wasn't done in an origin or historical fashion or a progression. It was done by a cunning idea. You see? So that would be my answer without going into further elaboration, because if you want further elaboration, we need a schoolroom or a teaching room setting.
Well, just tell me this then. The Hebrew or the Jewish Bible consists of the Torah, right? The Old Testament. What does that consist of?
No, see, you mean the Torah?
Isn't the Torah and the Old Testament the same?
No. No.
Explain.
The Old Testament, what they call in the Old Testament, is strictly for Christians. Okay, which is called the Pentateuch, or the first 5 books of Moses of the Old Testament. That's strictly for Christians. Okay, and that's what they put it out there for in 1475. The Torah has altogether different language in the creation of the Torah. This Torah was created for the very first time by one Solomon Bar Isaac, today called Rashi, who created what is known as the Sefer HaYasa literature, and I explained what Sefer HaYasa literature was all about. That's what he created in there.
Okay, all right. Now, then what did the Christians, what was their book or what was their teaching if it wasn't the Old Testament? Because in the Bible, even Catholic Bible, you got the Old Testament and you got the New Testament. That makes up the teachings of Christianity. Then what was taught?
The teachings of Christianity prior to Desiderius Erasmus, the playwright, ex-priest of the Roman Catholic Church, who is who created what is known as the Novum Instrumentum. Prior to his writings, or him coming out with the Synoptic Gospels, Mark, Matthew, and Luke, there was no, let's say, formula to teach Christianity. Only in the Roman Catholic Church, or these churches, these Christian churches, they, the minister would get up there, or the priest would get up there and preach homilies, which they florilegized, meaning they flourished it. Whatever they were talking about, they flourished it, but they had no written literature on it.
Now, what do you mean flourish?
Well, like you can take, like the ministers today, they tell you about Jesus was in the land of the wilderness, you see, and he had a hard time. He was over in Bethlehem. And they go on, and see, they can blow that up. Just that one thing. They can stretch it and stretch it and stretch it. That's called florilegizing it. That means to flourish it, embellish it, you see. So, but there was no written literature simply because there was no printing press to print up written literature. Everything had to be handwritten. So the priests in the Roman Catholic Church spoke and preached homilies, not from any written literature, until 1516, when they came out with the Novum Instrumentum, the writings of one Desiderius Erasmus. Then they began to preach from those 3 Gospels, and then began to preach from those other 6 Gospels that Erasmus had created. 1 and 2 Peter, 1 and 2 Corinthians, Galatians, and Epistles to the Romans. Okay? So,